Hey guys, back again. We've got Buddy up there, he's been cutting me hair. Don't take too much off the back. Anyway, I'm a little bit sick and I'll probably have to edit this. I'm having coughing fits, but we'll get through. I want to talk about the last place I worked at. Actually, the last time I worked. Now, I can't mention the name because I'm under a confidentiality agreement, but I was there from 2007 to late 2016, so 9 years. I am a mechanical engineer, maintenance fitter, tool maker, um, welder, anything to do with steel, I'm your man, or fixing machinery, whether it be small or large. That's the type of work I do. So I'd been working at this particular place. It's not far from home here. It was very convenient. I'd been working there for a couple of months on afternoon and day shift, just filling in as a contractor. And one day I was walking past the maintenance manager and he just said to me, "Do you want a job?" And I said, "Sure." So I wanted to buy a house at the time. This is the one I moved into here. And I needed steady employment because I'd been contracting for um, over 5 years anyway. So the money's good, but there's not that steady employment. You could be anywhere the next day. So I wanted steady employment and I wanted a full-time job. So I agreed to take this job, but it was on night shift. So if anyone's worked night shift, you'll know that it's very demanding and you're always trying to chase sleep. Now I did 7 years night shift at this place, and I was to the old supervisor was moving on and I was to fill his boots. So now this place was basically a big foundry. We did aluminium die casting, some injection molding, CNC machines, had our own tool room, did our own maintenance, a lot of robotics there for anyone that's mechanically minded. I remember saying to a bloke early on, I said, "This place seems so weird. These people seem like zombies. They just do what they're told. They don't question authority or have concerns for their health or anything. They just follow orders blindly." I said, "It seems so bizarre here." The night I started on night shift, I was unpacking my tools and I was greeted by a transsexual. The electrician there was a transsexual. No one had told me, so I kept it professional and didn't let it bother me too much. But I did have many laughs at, let's say, her expense. Not nice, but it was how I dealt with it. It was so bizarre for me, and it seemed like they had pulled a shifty on me to get me in there to do that. So it was just weird. I'd been there a couple of months and the place went downhill and they sacked. We had a full operational shift on night shift and they sacked 56 people from the plant and the majority of them were from night shift. And we were down to a crew of 7 on night shift, while afternoons, they ran around the clock 3 shifts. So afternoon and day shift ran their normal shifts and the bulk of the people were gone from night shift. So there was a select crew, and I believe that they were people selected to gang stalk and not let the cat out of the bag. These people were very central to my targeting because I worked and I come home and drank and gamed, so I didn't really go out and socialise a hell of a lot. It was hard on night shift to do that. So the people that they got into my life, they had to do so through work, apart from family, of course. So yeah, so they'd sacked all these people, and you had a skeleton crew on night shift of 7, and we weren't running as many machines. So I was basically doing all the maintenance while the lazy bastards on afternoon and night shift ran their machines into the ground. They weren't upkeeping the maintenance. So I was just getting hammered with work. Like, I was flat out all night. There were a lot of nights where I wouldn't even have smoko or lunch. I'd just work straight through the 8.5 hours. It was very demanding, but I'm someone that is conscientious. I always used to work very hard. I worked and played hard, but you know, for the good of the company and whatever, not being a brown nose, but for the good of the company, I wanted these machines up and running, and I wanted my shift to do well. So it was becoming physically demanding. I had the transsexual partner, was a very slight lad and was not much help with the physical work. So I was getting snowed under. Now, about 6 months down the track, things started to pick up again. And instead of hiring the people back like they said they would, they just started to stock the place with contractors. It was easier for them to have contractors because, you know, they're easily disposable. You don't have long service and insurance and all that type of thing. So they started to get all these untrained contractors in, and in a place that specialises like this did, this had some fairly difficult work. It became a problem. So the production rates and everything started to go downhill, but they moved a bloke in with me, and I'm going to name names here, Barry Lester, and he is one of the first, I believe, operatives that they moved into this workplace. This is a proper gang stalking operative, not just a gang stalker, a proper operative, ex-military, I believe, this bloke. There's a slew of men that worked for this company that I believe were all ex-military, and a couple of them admitted that they were in Vietnam together. So I've seen the photos. Anyway, they moved this bloke, Barry Lester, in with me, and he very much got to know me, you know. That was his sole purpose, just to gather data. You know, we're already doing the same trade. We're sort of knockabout larrikins. This bloke was actually a Englishman, a pommy, as we call him. You know, rugged sort of dude, tattooed, loved to drink, loved to joke. He was compatible with someone I'd have a friendship with. So they'd moved Barry in, and we worked together for years. And I didn't know of targeting, and I didn't smell that anything was off, but this bloke was very much reconnaissance and doing surveillance on me. I couldn't see it at the time, but I can clearly see it now, of course. So we worked together for some period, and then he was moved to day shift. He's only moved to day shift for a period, and then he came back and worked with me. So this bloke worked with me the majority of the time. I'd say that he did more than 5 years with me on nights. They were starting to get some new people in, and they would always have some sort of nefarious types around me, whether they were pushing drugs or, you know, always wanting to come over for a beer, or there was always someone trying to provoke me into doing something. There'd be a guy that was talking about knocking off food from the kitchen. There'd be someone that's talking about taking whatever. There'd always be someone at this place trying to get me to do something, you know. They're always trying to bring the worst out in me. I also had the supervisor at the time was he always used to sing I'll Be Watching You by the Police. I think it's called I'll Be Watching You. He used to sing that all the time, and I'm thinking, what's your hang up with that song? But he knew that I was being looked at. I don't know what they told him, but he used to sing that song. And then he used to say to me that he's going to put cameras in the workshop. And I said, if you put cameras in the workshop, I'll be sitting out front on the grass till you remove them. So he was inadvertently letting me know that I was going to be under some sort of surveillance. He was announcing it, but I just thought he was being an asshole of a boss, like wanting to scrutinise what was happening. And there used to be this whiteboard that he'd write the jobs up for the night, for night shift, for spare work to go on if machines weren't breaking down. And he was filling this board, and I was once again just getting snowed under. Like there was more work than I could handle, and it didn't matter how much I did. This bloke just whinged, and I did a lot of work there. I worked my ass off there, and nothing ever satisfied this bloke. He was a real pain in the ass. I hated him. So I was working hard and getting snowed under it, and at the end of 2013, my back just lets go. I'm lifting it's only a 40 kilo C section. It's called C channel. And I'm lifting it up onto the saw to cut it, and I lifted and twisted, and my back went L4, L5 down low, just above the butt cheek there. And it just felt like I'd been knifed at the time, but the pain subsided. This was a week before Christmas this happened, and over the Christmas period, it sort of healed up, and I come back to work the next year. But as I got into the swing of working again, my back would keep going. Little did I know that it was there were some other elements at play. Let's say they were blowing my back out, and I was. It was about March where I couldn't take it anymore. It was agony, and it was 100% nerve pain. I was getting no break from it, and it would run from the back into the buttock, straight down the leg, and my toes were going numb. I was losing sensation in my 3 outer toes on my right foot. And one day I came to work and I tried to put my boots on. They were just slip-on boots, and my back went, and I fell to the ground, and I tried to get up like a dozen times, and it was excruciating. I couldn't get off the floor, so I went home, and that was the last time that I worked the night shift there. I saw someone on the way out, and I said, I've got to go. I can't. I can't put up with this anymore. So I was getting the runaround then from doctors. No doctor would treat it seriously. They all said you've got to keep moving. They wanted to bring out more trauma and more pain. They were all in on it, all the doctors. I went and saw 3 separate doctors at the time. I wasn't getting money coming in for months, and I wasn't on work cover. They weren't even covering it. They were just covering it up and making sure that I was in maximum pain. And I lay here on the bed for months at a time while I had this asshole. One of my old neighbours would play music around the clock, like into the wee hours, and they were really working, and they were actually really breaking me down mentally at this time. I was on OxyContin and Endone, something I was prescribed for over 3 years, which those opiates very much dry out your insides, and they're difficult to get off, but they dry out your insides, they zone you out, and I was the perfect zoned out, experiment, just lying here on the bed while they're doing, more to my back and starting to do some subliminal mind control work, where I was in suicidal states at times. I wanted to opt out because I couldn't get any relief for my back. The drugs actually did nothing, and I would pop a whole packet of Endone at a time. I'd have 20 Endone at a time, just to zone my head out, but the pain was always there. So, and when we're talking nerve pain, we're talking 11 out of 10 pain, 24/7, and it just wore me down. Well, while this was going on, one of my evil sister suggests that I have acupuncture, and that amplifies the pain again, and that was for trauma. They didn't want to help me. Anyway, they end up saying, "Oh, go to the work doctor. She might help you." So I agree. I would have went to any doctor. So I agree to go to the work doctor, and she finally gets something going and writes a recommendation to a surgeon, but he's like across the other side of the city. So I've got to travel in this taxi, and I'm laying down in the back, and it's just this whole time was just hell. Anyway, I get a series of scans, which there's back and forth even with the surgeon, and it's like 2 months to wait to see the surgeon each time. So I'm getting screwed around, and I've been in pain for like 6 months now, and nothing's happened. In constant pain, and they're aware that it's breaking me down psychologically, but it's hardening me physically. Like, that's why I can endure a lot than I do now, because of this experience. But we finally get the scan, and there's a piece as big as your thumbnail that's jammed in. I've pushed the disc out, and I've sheared it off. So there's a piece as big as your thumbnail jammed in on the sciatic nerve running down the right leg. So this surgeon actually says, "You need emergency surgery. Let's get you in quick." He said you could have been a paraplegic the way that it was going, and so they booked me in for surgery. And even at the surgery, even when I was booked in to go, when I booked into the hospital to go and get a room, they kept me waiting like 5 hours in the waiting room, and they made sure it was full, and I had to stand up. So standing was better than sitting, so joke's on them. But they were relentless. They were gaslighting me at the hospital that I had the surgery at. No one come and saw me, even though I was there 5 days and had 3 surgeries. It was just, it wasn't fun. Anyway, I got better from the surgery. Actually, the moment they removed that piece, the pain gone, but the numbness in the leg is still there. And I'm very much not the man I was physically. I'm not as strong as I was. I'm a little tentative on lifts, and I am very unflexible now. I was never that flexible, but so I am moving fairly good for how I was. And Mum then dies. They then kill Mum, but I won't go into that. I've gone into that before, but Mum died, and I went back to work. I took some time off. They didn't even want to give me bereavement leave for my own mother, this place. They even made that an ordeal. This place also used to screw around with my pay like you wouldn't believe. Like every second week I was either not paid or I wasn't paid overtime, or I was always shortchanged and always having to chase something up. Everything was an ordeal there, you know. They made it that everything was a chore. So when I returned, I agreed that my time on night shift had finished because I wasn't capable of what I was before, and that I would need the assistance of some of the other men on day shift. But with my knowledge and leadership, I was to be take a lead role on day shift. So I came back to the second operative, Philip de Waal, a South African. This guy was military. This guy had a head like a bloody, like a military man. He was very foreign to the job. He was the day shift maintenance supervisor, so he was directly in charge of me, and he had no clue about the trade at all. He was once again there for surveillance. Philip de Waal. We didn't get along. He was there to butt heads with me and get that type of response. Actually, I forgot, before I left night shift, they had an operative in there called Laurie. He was a Romanian, and he was the night shift supervisor. So he was the head of the whole night shift. They moved him in. I forgot to mention him. He also was a operative, not just a gang stalker. And this guy used to train MMA fighters, and he was always trying to get me to go down there, and he wanted me to unleash the beast before they went live with the stalking. He would always have pamphlets of upcoming MMA fights on his desk. He'd always be talking to me about fighting. Me and him would wrestle and fight, and he was very much trying to bring that side out of me. So I forgot to mention him, but he was the second, but one of three that were clear operatives at this place. How they could explain that if this gets uncovered, I don't know. But I can certainly see who they were, and they knew nothing about the job that they were employed for. So I came back, and I had the South African Philip de Waal as my boss, and he was very argumentative and negative, and he didn't know what he was talking about, but he was always trying to get me into an argument. I then started to, I was drinking a lot more and started to socialise. I could take it a bit easier. I wasn't working as hard as I was. I wasn't exhausting my body, and they actually had a contractor helping me, and then down the line an apprentice. So I had a contractor helping me, and if anything was too physical, or if I was tired, then he'd jump in, and it was a big help for me. But he was a pervert stalker. This bloke would fill my phone up with porn, and he was a real dirty bastard, and he wanted to bring out that side of me. They then brought an apprentice in who I put in my lookalike video, and I was training an apprentice. So they even went to the length of bringing an apprentice in, and what better way to learn everything about me than to have someone train under me, you know. And this bloke he was an adult apprentice. He was 31 when he started. He did 3 years that I know of. And he'd come round here and we'd drink, and yeah, there were a few of us that would go to each other's homes and drink, and I'd noticed that I would start to pass out around these blokes. I'd pass out, and I'd been given a touch-up, or, you know, my head had been bloody smashed, or there were some nefarious things happening. They were also trying to set me up. One of them is such a devious setup that they tried on me that I won't even mention it here, but it is disgusting. And they were just, everyone was just trying to get something out of me, you know. There were many entrapment attempts from then on, namely by my boss and those that I was closest to, my so-called mates. A lot of them were sending me photos of their kids, not inappropriate photos, but seemed a little bizarre that they would send them all the same. And a lot of people started to provoke me. They were standoffish. They were really trying to wind me up and make me aggressive. They then created their own labour hire company and just flooded the place with stalkers. They brought in a new day shift supervisor, and he was to be my nemesis. Well, not long after, my back had gone again, and he wanted to just sweep it under the rug and not mention it. The company did the dirty on me and did not file the proper medical records, and it did not go down as a second injury. This supervisor then lies and says that I was conspiring to overthrow him, and I was gathering the troops to get rid of him, and they stood me down. So I went and saw the union, but little did I know they were in on it too. They actually stood down one of my so-called mates, and he was running an unfair dismissal case alongside mine at the time, but I didn't know his was bullshit. I ended up taking a meagre offer just to get it out of the way. I had too much on my plate already. I had the death of mum. I was still on opiates for the pain. I was getting mind control and V2K, and I started to think that I may be bipolar, even schizophrenic, but I was a little too old for that. So I was then referred to a lawyer for my back, and that's when they faked my sister's car accident, and she too ran a case alongside mine with my same lawyer. It was very bizarre. Both cases, they were running a consecutive case with a mate and a family member. Anyway, that went nowhere for 3 years, and it was just wearing me down. Constant meetings, constant paperwork, and it was just grinding me down. It just kept reminding me of like the worst time in my life, and everything was weighing heavy, and I ended up dropping the case after 3 years. I'm still within the grace period. You got 6 years, you can take it back up. I am still within that period, but I'm not sure if I'll revisit it. So I had to borrow some money from my father to stay afloat. He was looking down his nose and making it very awkward and sort of belittling me about it. I was under financial hardship a couple of times, and I had to see another lawyer to pull out all my superannuation to stay afloat. Well, because I'd contracted, I'd had many policies and they paid out on a permanent disability. And I think I got 400,000 and paid this place off. Well, I'm about to run out of that money, but yeah, they cleaned me out, you know, and now they want this house. So there you go, the story of the last place I worked. Certainly seemed a little off at the time, but I had no idea what it truly was. I can, of course, see that now. I was actually asked to sign a Dobbin a whistleblower policy when I was there, and I kicked up a stink while everyone else signed it blindly. The place was very lax on health and safety, and I was lucky to walk away with only, you know, some burns, a couple of broken fingers, unfortunately the back, but could have been much worse, not knowing who was really around me at the time. Anyway, sorry if this video's bored you, and if you stuck around, you're a real trooper. But look, there's a lot that I've admitted from this just due to time. They certainly did a hell of a lot to me there, but that's the overall brief anyway. All right, guys, until next time, catch you later, bye.